It was the whole, I think the whole natural aspect. I understand that we need regular medicine to treat what we need to treat, but I think we need to look at the whole body, and as you said, focus on the whole body. And the spirit is one that I believe gets so buried in all this treatment that they forget to look at the whole spirit when they're treating.
It does, and then it becomes two-dimensional. And one of the things that I learned as a healthy breast teacher with Dr. Kerr was that spirit is probably the pivotal point at which people make changes in their lives, because it doesn't matter what you do, whether you have surgery, whether you take chemo, whether you use essential oils, whether you supplement properly, whether you change your diet. All those things are very important, but the cornerstone of that is your spirit. So if you really want to heal, if you want to heal on a level of your spirit or your soul, no, I'm not saying cure, but heal. Heal that person inside of you. Find that peace, find that calm, find that nurture that you need to love yourself. As women, we tend to be caregivers.
That's right.
We give care to everybody but ourselves. We're the last people that we nurture, and we wonder why we're tired and burned out and irritable, and you know, where did the last 10 years go, for heaven's sakes, because I've been looking after kids. And you know, and then you come to a point in your life when you're in your 40s or your 50s and your children leave home, and you say, now what? And although it is never ever 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 too late to start, we really need to pay attention to having a spiritual practice. And that spiritual practice can be comprised of many things. It can be Reiki practice, which I prefer, but then again, I'm a little biased. It can be yoga. Kundalini yoga in particular is something that works a lot with stretching, and particularly for women who are in their 40s or their 50s when we're not quite so flexible anymore.
So stretchy.
It's nice to be able to have something whereby we can expand our lungs, we can bring that breath of life into our bodies, we can gain some of our flexibility back. You just took a class the other night, a jazz class, I believe, and you kept up with all those 22-year-olds.
I could stretch. I couldn't necessarily do the accurate steps of the jazz, but
well,
I could certainly stretch.
and that's great. And that's the whole thing. We want to keep our bodies limber because we want to age gracefully. If we wait until we're retired to, you know, take up those classes or do that yoga, or you know, say, oh, you know, I'll swim then, or I'll exercise then. Well, you know, our way to age in a healthy manner is to start when we're younger. And the more muscle mass that you have as you age, or the better muscle mass you have as you age, the better you will age.
That's right.
Your metabolism will stay higher, your bone structure will be much better supported. Your hormones stay more balanced, and gosh knows, both Tammy and I know what menopause is all about. It should have been
hot flash.
Yes, gosh darn it all. But you know, there are natural ways of dealing with those things too. So we don't have to put synthetic hormones into our bodies. You know, we have found that research has shown that using synthetic hormones is actually, maybe for the first couple of years, done that protective heart thing, but then the flip side of that comes into play, and you have the problems with blood clots and stroke and heart attack and all those sorts of things. And then, you know, resurgence of cancer, breast cancer becomes higher, stats become higher. If you look at what the stats were in the 1920s, I believe it was 1 out of 23 women was going to develop breast cancer in their lifetime. The stats have changed to now to 1 to 8. 1 out of 8 women, and who knows, in another 10 or 15 years, could be 1 out of 4.
Stats will change,
and that's really unfortunate. And there are a lot of contributory factors to that, because we live under more stress, we have a more polluted environment, we have less nutrition in our food because our soil is depleted. We are exposed to higher electromagnetic forces because we live in an industrialized nation. We have some of the highest rates of breast cancer in the world. And if you look at some areas too, you can see that there is an environmental impact,
That's right.
for certain areas, and it could even be around areas where petroleum is developed, or they have like Chemical Valley here in Canada. And you look at, how many women in an area like that develop breast cancer, and you say, oh, there's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. It's a small community, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but these women are not related.
That's right.
So there's no genetic component with them. And if there was a genetic marker, and some of them do have that, if there is a predisposition to it genetically, then that too will increase the chance. So say your lifetime chance is 2%, and then maybe somebody has a genetic marker and that raises it to 6 or 8%, and then you add in the environmental factor that might raise it to 12 to 15%. Now you have a problem. So we need to detoxify our bodies, and then in turn we need to nourish our bodies. So detoxification needs to be like infrared saunas or sweating, literally sweating. So get out there and burn your buns, gals, and get movement going. It can be using an alkaline powder to help, or alkaline drops. Can be using oxygen drops to make a more alkaline environment in your body. It can be using your food to create a more alkaline environment. The ratio should be 80% alkaline foods to 20% acidic. But our activities are also acidic and alkaline. So if you look at things like Tai Chi and yoga and Pilates, things like that
And
are
meditation.
alkaline, yes, and meditation. Those are things that help your body to become alkaline. Whereas if you're a runner or you burn weights, when you lift weights and you're tearing down your muscle, the two things that you release are what? Lactic acid and carbon dioxide.
Right.
So they create an acidic environment. Get it the heck out of your body.
And everybody's
So-
different. You just
Yeah.
need to find what really moves you, what
Yeah.
really gets your crank going. And some could be hiking, some could be Pilates, but it doesn't always have to be what everybody else is doing. You find your own level of what you want to do and balance it out. I mean, I hike through the park. We have a beautiful park where I live in London, and I hike, I walk, I go through the bushes, I go down the trails, I go up the steps. It doesn't cost a thing just to do that. But knowing that I've done this exertion on myself and have sweated some days, I go home and then I start the deep breathing. They're very easy things to do for yourself, to nurture yourself, and you don't need a manual to do it.
No, not at all. And one of the things that oftentimes breast cancer patients have to face is the fact that you oftentimes need to take a certain amount of time off of work because, in order to heal, you need to give yourself the time and not put the added stress sometimes of working, and not everybody has short-term and long-term, care benefits. So that means that your income can be radically
That's
reduced.
right. That's
You
right.
can go off on and take sick benefits from EI or whatever, but that only lasts for a certain length of time too. So you have to look at ways that are going to give you the maximum benefit with sometimes the minimum amount of expenditure. So as Tammy says, and Tammy calls it her park, by the way,
Yes,
and
that's
she
right.
likes to dance through there. Call her my pixie. But, you can do things like that. You can enjoy nature, and we need to do that. We actually need to be more mindful about the world that we live in because we go through it at such pace that we really don't stop and literally smell the roses or the trees or the grass or the water, or take a look at that baby duckling that's waddling along beside mom, and we don't have an appreciation for those sorts
Or the
of
rainbow
things.
that comes out after the rain when you walked in the park.
Yes, exactly. So, you had the park, the ozone, and the rainbow.